Good morning, and welcome to this morning's edition of Contracting Chatter. We know how we do over here. We do not believe in growing alone. So tag your business bestie, grab your contractor's notebook and your favorite beverage. I love coffee. Good morning, Fuller. How are you doing? Now, as I said yesterday, this recording is going to be used for my podcast. So, how are you doing this morning? We don't believe in growing alone over here. So share this broadcast through your community, tag your friends, anybody who you know can use some good information. Welcome to Contracting Chatter, where we discuss everything still up from yesterday. I need you to go to sleep. You can catch the replays on my YouTube channel, LT&A Consulting Group. Go to sleep. Good morning, Keisha. How are you? Yes, all of my replays, broadcasts are on my YouTube channel, the LT&A Consulting Group. Oh, yeah, go to sleep, honey. Yes, as I said from yesterday, we're discussing a question was asked as I was signing off, and the question was simply, what constitutes contract readiness? And I said I was going to answer the question today. So I hope you're ready to take notes. This morning, I'm only streaming to TikTok and the YouTube. So, and quite frankly, Chatter will eventually only stream to YouTube. So, contract readiness, what is that? That is your ability not to win a contract. It's your ability to perform on a contract. It's the ability to meet the needs. I'm going to go here and to exceed the needs of your client. That is contract readiness. Now, what does it take to become contract ready? That's the question. And here we go. Contract readiness is in several parts. And no, it's not a certification. And you can take your company to multi-million dollars in government contracting and never, ever hold a certification. I mean, never hold a certification. So let's go there. So, contract readiness is simply this. We're going to start with business ready. Is your business ready? Do you have the basics? And that's an accounting system. Point blank, period. Do you have your accounting system set up and ready? And your accounting system being set up means that it is capable of capturing costs on a project level. And I'm gonna go here. Is it capable of capturing costs on a task level? I I did this exercise last week, I believe it is, and I'm ghetto. I'm gonna do it again. Your accounting system should be able to record the contract, the project, when necessary, the task and subtask. and then produce a bill at whatever level is required for that project. Now, somebody is saying, what? What does that even mean? Simply put, you can have a contract that requires you to bill on different levels because the contract, I'm going to talk about that manual billing in a minute, because the contract is released task order based. So your contract, like my first contract was DBE support services. And DBE is disadvantaged business enterprises. The first task of that contract was basically recruiting people to even want to be on the contract, but to take the free service. I will never understand people in business who want government contracts. The government is willing to pay for you to do the back end work, and you still don't want to do it. The first task was recruiting them, bringing them in, and developing the business plan. That was the first task. And I had to bill for the work on that task. The second task order was training. The third task order was rates development. The fourth task order was hosting events. Each task order, I had to bill for that task. I couldn't just do one jumbled up billing because they wanted to see how much money each effort cost. So, contract readiness is ensuring that your accounting system can capture costs at the appropriate level and bill. Now, to address that question about manual, first of all, why do you want to do it manually? That's just timely. So, if you have a contract, and even if that contract only has 3 people working on it, that means you need to take that contract and sit down with everybody's timesheet and spread it out. Then you have to apply everybody's rates. Then you have to do all the costs associated. Why would you want to do that? It's room for error. Not that your accounting system can't produce an error, but you've taken the error rate up exponentially doing it manually. And there are people who started off in their accounting system, export it, export it out to produce a manual bill, then produce the invoice in their accounting system because they don't want to spend the money. Child, it's just a whole lot of headache. And then when you produce it manually, you have to manually keep all the records. Now, you have to keep records anyway, and that's a sign of contract readiness, record keeping. However, when you're doing stuff manually, you have to produce another document that dictates how you're manually doing it. So now you have to create a policy that governs the manual procedure. So you're just creating extra work doing it manually. Now I'm streaming across multiple platforms, so I'm getting questions across multiple platforms. it it's 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 not the highest and effective use of your time. And then to produce it manually and effectively and efficiently and have all the checks and balances, you're taking away from the work that you could be doing on the contract. So are you billing and effectively reducing on the contract if you're manually producing a bill? It's a lot of work. And as I said, you now have to produce a policy to govern how you manually produce on how you do anything manually when it comes to the billing. No. But that's a good segue into policies and procedures. Are you contract ready? You have to have manual policies and procedures. The desk audit will actually ask you for your policies and procedures governing your accounting, your timesheets, um, depending upon which agency, they will ask you for policies and procedures around travel. So you need to have your policies and procedures together. And then I'm gonna also go here. If everything is in your head, how can you ever hire? Nobody can read your mind. So you either don't intend to ever grow your business if everything is in your head, or you are working from arrogance and ego that someday in the great by and by, you're going to take it out of your head and put it in writing. Eventually, you're going to have to stop and write all this stuff down. Eventually, you're just going to have to stop and write it all down. Another sign of contract readiness is actually understanding the vernacular or the terms of the industry. And somebody is listening to this saying, "What? Who wouldn't know the terms?" I remember sitting in the state, the government hold all of these, meetings for government contractors. And I was actually sitting in the meeting and people were asking questions about terms like fixed price. Um, they wanted to know what a SOP is. That's standard operating procedure. And somebody saying, well, if you don't know, you don't know. I'm not saying that not knowing is the problem. I'm saying that sitting there finding fault with the government presenters because you don't know something is the problem. There's a time and a place for all things. And you have to do a little bit of research yourself. So understanding the terminology of the industry you're choosing to work in. And the industry isn't going to change its language for you. Understand the industry. I want to also address this. Be prepared for the contracts you're bidding on. I will never forget, this girl was actually arguing. She wanted to bid on construction contracts. And she was actually making an argument that the government should provide the materials to the contractors in addition to awarding them the contracts. That does not make sense. You're you're a construction company. You should have the capabilities of renting, securing a bulldozer, concrete, whatever it is that you need to work on that project. But you want the government to give you a contract, then turn around to give you the money to hire the team, rent the equipment, and then turn around and pay you? That what sense does that make? I mean, she stopped the whole entire meeting with that logic. And she couldn't logically make it make sense. So contract readiness, you should be able to perform on the contracts you're bidding on. Like I would never go after a construction contract. However, I would pursue as a subcontractor performing the financial piece of a construction contract. You have to know where you fit in. You have to know your role. Now, I'm not pouring concrete because I don't have a clue how to do it, but I can do your financial reporting. And that's how I would do. I would actually suggest that I partner and come in as a subcontractor. You have to know your role, get in where you fit in. And that's another thing. Contract readiness is understanding your role. What duties do I have when and where in the contracting stages and phases? And then understanding that your role changes depending upon the phases and stages that you're in. And it changes. On this contract, you're at the negotiations phase, and as a negotiator, that is your role to negotiate. But on this contract, you have to take ownership of the work. So your role is different. On this contract, it's closing out. Your role switches depending on the contract, depending on the stage it's in. And if you don't understand that, you could be doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, saying the wrong thing to the wrong people, and mess up. Understand your role at whatever phase and stage that you're in and govern yourself accordingly. Another another way of knowing your contract ready is, are you willing to delegate? Delegating is a major priority in contracting. You can't do it all. And even for those who are solopreneuring, there comes a time you have to delegate. Even if all you're doing is delegating to an outside company to do your bookkeeping, is delegating to an outside company to handle your travel, you're going to have to delegate something at some point in time. Because trying to juggle all the hats, something is going to go lacking. So you're going to have to learn how to delegate. For those who are doing the larger contracts and you like to micromanage because you picked up that horrible habit from corporate, unlearn that. That is the best way to sink a ship. Is to micromanage. You will lose your best people. You will bottleneck your contracts. And I'm going to tell you what the government will do. If you constantly delaying and missing deadlines, they're on the back end. Their legal team, somebody is going to legal to see if they can award it to somebody else. And if they can, they will go to the number 2 person on the list and give that contract to somebody else if you constantly bottlenecking and missing deadlines. If you are a micromanager, if you're one of those people who believe you're the only one who can do it, you need to take some leadership classes. I know somebody that I can refer you to, and she will get you right when it comes to leadership. Cut it out. I know a mindset coach that will get you right, because micromanaging is a sign of bad mindset. There's something you need to let go of. She will get you right. And if you don't want to work with a woman, I know a man that can get you right. I know somebody. My Rolodex be Rolodexing. Cut it out. Another sign of contract readiness is having an advisory team. Do you have legal counsel that you can refer to for your contracts? Not somebody who read something on Google. No. Somebody who is learned and somebody who understands legal language. These people running around here telling you that you don't need to hire an attorney, that you don't need to engage lawyers in business, are people you should not listen to. Just because you read a document does not mean you understand it well. Every industry, every business has its own language. And part of the problem we're having today is that people are taking language from one industry or one realm and they're applying it into another, and they're applying it incorrectly. So every government contractor should have an attorney that is familiar with contract law. Somebody that you can call up and say, I need this contract reviewed because there are some clauses that I don't understand. You may not, when you're small, you can't afford in-house contract manager. I understand that very well. There are consultants that offer their services on retainer, and all they do is contract reviews. If you're not willing to hire a consultant, then you're not contract ready. I know a lot of people that you can't afford a full-time compliance person. You couldn't afford me full-time. However, you can afford me on retainer. And if you're not willing to hire me or someone like me to help you stay compliant so you can keep the money that you're making, then you're not contract ready. And I'm saying that. Every government contractor who is CAS covered, and I'm going here, you should hire a compliance person before you get CAS covered, because you should have a disclosure statement. You should have it and not need it, then need it and not have it. And once you hit $75,000 in government contracts, you need a disclosure statement. And writing one up because that's what you want to do, and you write it up incorrectly, and you hand that incorrect disclosure statement to the government, you're now subject to audit. And when they come in and audit you and it's incorrect, depending upon how egregious the non-compliance is, the government auditor can suspend your billing until you correct that non-compliance. You can't afford not to do it right. Most people who are non-compliant is because they refuse to follow the rules. They're non-compliant because they refuse to follow the rules. Hire somebody on retainer. I can't afford that. Yes, you can, because you're contract ready when you have rates. You should have billing rates and you should have bid rates. Aren't they the same thing? Sometimes. Most times. Not all the time. What is the difference? I'm glad you asked that question. Your bid rates are based upon your forward pricing. Your billing rate is based upon your final negotiations. I'm going to say that again. Your bid rates are based upon your forward pricing. Your billing rates are based upon your negotiated rates. So can they be the same? Yes. Can there be a difference? Yes. There are times you'll bid on, good morning, Miss Cannon. There are times you'll bid on a contract and your contract will tell you you have to use a G&A rate of 9%. But your actual G&A is 12, where you're eating the 3%. Good morning, Cassie. You're just eating the 3%. So your bid rate was a 12% G&A. Your billing rate is 9%. That's an example of how your bid rate and your billing rate can be different. That's also how you know you're contract ready, because your accounting system should be able to handle that. That's another reason why you don't want to do that manually, because then you have to remember which contract does what. However, your accounting system can be programmed. This contract is this rate. This contract is this rate. So when you go to produce your incurred cost submission, on the submission, it'll say G&A, your in-house G&A is 10%, 12%, but you have a contract G&A of 9%. You just have to ensure that you're applying the correct G&A on the correct projects. That's why you don't want to do this mess manually. You will mess up. Transparency moment. When I first went to compliance, the person who was supposed to train me, she took a new job. So she spent 3 hours handed me a stack of papers this big. It said, these are the reports. Pulled up the incurred cost submission from the previous year, said, copy this into the new year, wipe it out, run these reports, apply the rates. Good luck. You can call me if you need me, and kept going. So I made that mistake because I didn't know. Here's the beauty. I found out. I figured it out and I caught the mistake. So by the time the auditor came to audit, I just handed in a new incurred cost submission. I was like, look, I found the mistakes myself. Here you go. They didn't want to take it. That's cool. They don't have to. But I already found the mistakes. That was a painful experience because she didn't train me properly. But it was what it was, it is what it is, and we just gonna keep moving on. So that's another reason not to do it manually. Depending upon the company you're trying to build, which is why I talk about in my book, you have the vision and you take the vision and put a plan under that vision. If you don't have a plan, you can't prepare for it. And I'm rewriting the book. A second edition is coming out. You're going to take that plan, and I put in there, I put in the book, Keys to Government Contracting. You can buy the current edition out. You can get a lot out of the current edition. I'm not saying that you can't. I just decided to go back and add some things in. And one of the things you need to do, one of the things you need to consider is while you're planning, you need to look at the contract mix. You need to look at the contract values. And that will do a lot when determining your staff size. And that's a mistake a lot of contractors make. If you don't have that information, and a lot of people don't even know to think about this, but you should think about this in the beginning. If you think about it in the beginning, then you can create a growth plan. But if I call it accidental contractor, if you keep accidentally growing, and if you keep accidentally winning, and if you keep accidentally doing things, your accidental growth will create deliberate problems. And then you will eventually bottleneck and choke yourself. So without a growth plan, which is another sign of contract readiness, you can't plan for the audit. Then you can't plan for the ultimate contracting success. Now, there's a little more to it, but that's the highlights. I hope that answered the question around contract readiness. We're a little past the 30-minute mark. And I hope I answered the question around contract readiness. Do you have any questions? If you go to my podcast, LT&A Contractors Conversation, you will hear me talk about audit readiness, and the two go hand in hand. And I'm going to re-record that episode. Well, I'm going to add an addendum to that episode. So did I cover everything? I didn't even get into building out a BMP process, because you need to have that as well. So if I don't have any more questions, and we're at the 30-minute mark for this morning's segment. Whew. And I don't want to overload anybody. I invite you to return tomorrow for another segment of Contracting Chatter. I give this kind of content every day. We're going to do a little segment swaying in July, because July starts low-hanging fruit season. July 8th through the 12th is Contracting and Business Week. I always choose the first week of low-hanging fruit season, which is the beginning of fourth quarter of the government fiscal year, to do that. And it's also the half year mark of the calendar year. This year, for Contracting and Business Week, days 1 and day 2, we're discussing business development, but it's business development 2.0. On day 3, we're talking about compliance. I'm a compliance girl, so we will talk about compliance. Day 3, we're talking about low hanging fruit season for the new contractor. Whether you're new in business or you're an established business new in government contracting, you have to approach the low hanging fruit season differently. And then on day 5, we're talking about low hanging fruit season for the seasoned contractor, that experienced contractor, because for you, low hanging fruit season is a little different. Now, for those who do VIP, this year I'm offering a VIP option. VIP, you get to stick around for an extra 30 minutes and you get to do a Q&A session every day after the general session. You also get access to that Saturday, a special masterclass. And then there's some other perks for VIP as well. So if you want to register for Contracting and Business Week, there's a link that's pinned to the description everywhere, but it's https://bit.ly/CNB 2024. So you can register for the general session, which is free, 1 hour each day. VIP is $97, which entitles you to 30-minute Q&A session after the general session, plus the master class on that Saturday. And there's some additional perks. The master class is worth the $97 by itself. And with that, I invite you to come back tomorrow, which is Q&A Friday. Ooh, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow's Q&A Friday. So if you have any questions around business compliance, government contracting, I'm going to answer your questions. Now, if you want to submit them early, you can drop them in my DMs, or you can actually email them to me. You can actually either DM I'm sorry. You can actually DM them to me or email them to me so that I can have them ahead of time and get them back out to and have them prepare a good answer, because some questions require some research, and I don't like to give fluff answers. Good morning, Beverly. So with that, it's interesting. I see that I have a message in my chat, but it's not showing. Okay. With that, how you doing? How are you doing this morning, Beverly? You're catching me and I'm just getting ready to log out. So unless anybody have any questions for me, I just gave some of the stages of contracting readiness. So unless you have any questions for me, tomorrow is Q&A Friday. So don't forget, if you have any questions, just send an email or you can send me a DM, TikTok. Be respectful in the DMs. That's all I'm going to say. I will see you tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for another edition of Contracting Chatter. I'm your host, Luciana Turner, the founder, CEO, and Chief Compliance Officer, the LT&A Consulting Group. Have an amazing day.